everybody, this is Matt with Simplistic Reviews with another Simplistic sit down during the Fantasia Film Fest 2021. I have another special guest, not like all my guests aren't special, they're all special in their own ways. And I have the director of Hotel Poseidon, Stef Lernous. Now, was that close enough? I know we were talking about this a second ago off camera.
That's great. You actually pronounce the S at the end, but I'm not holding it against
you. Oh, okay.
That's excellent.
There, okay, whew, man, the pressure was on.
Yeah.
I feel you were staring into my soul about getting this right. So
it's a dark soul.
It is. Well, mine's too. We're kindred spirits then, so it's fine. Well, thanks for hopping on the doing this interview with me, Stef. Your film was one of the first films I watched during Fantasia 25th anniversary 2021, whatever you want to call it, and it was something that kind of grabbed my attention. I like the still of seeing Dave looking in a mirror, and even the poster. It's kind of cool, gothic-y artwork, Art Deco type look, and it immediately attracted me. And I know you guys in Belgium and France are known for creating things that us Americans over here are like, wow, that was really messed up. And you really made it happen for me. So thank you for your dark vision of I guess a darker vision of maybe The Shining or something like that. Some guy's personal hell walking through a hotel.
My pleasure.
So first thing I want to talk about is just kind of the genesis of the film. It has a very particular style. And what was your kind of take on? Were you trying to make like a haunted house film? Were you trying to make a existential, dark, psychological, dark horror film? Like what was the kind of the thought process behind putting Hotel Poseidon together?
Well, the answer to that is quite easy. I have no idea. No,
perfect. Yes.
Well, no, it's like it's my first feature film. And as always, my first plays that I did, theater plays, or if I haven't done plays for a while and I do something, it's always a lot. It's everything. I have a lot to tell, I guess. So if you're asking if it was the idea of a horror movie psychological, I think it's always horror with me. It's always a bit existential. There's always comedy. Yeah. I cannot escape a certain lightness in the dark. I realize it's a bit of a strange kind of comedy, sometimes very grotesque, sometimes quite dry. But I like the idea of just only the dark has a big appeal. But there has to be some light in it. And the other thing is, I love haunted houses. I just love the genre. I would say probably it's my favorite genre in the horror. My favorite movie is The Old Dark House by James Whale, 1932. Yeah. It's so fantastic for various reasons. And the acting is quite theatrical in a way, very modern also in a way. Yeah. It's very comedic. The first time I saw, did you see this movie?
Oh yeah. I mean, I watched it. It was one of the first ones I watched for the festival, and the characters are kind of what got me excited. I think it was included in my like preview of the festival as well. It was like this was like one of the films that I was like, this is right up my alley. It's almost like a Grand Guignol film almost in a way too, where it's like very elaborate, and it's not gory, but it's also like what's the word I'm looking for? Like grotesque in a lot of ways.
It's very weird because I think you're talking about Hotel Poseidon, and I actually was asking if you've seen The Old Dark House.
Oh, The Old Dark House. No, that James Whale. I mean, I know like Frankenstein and stuff like that, but The Old Dark House, I know of the film. And I'm more of like the Cabin of like Dr. Caligari and things like that. So beautiful. Things of that era, of the silent era, the black and white era. But Old Dark House have not seen. But now, based on your recommendation, if it's something that inspired you, now it has my attention.
Well, in a way, because you were describing it, you're actually describing Poseidon, and except for mentioning the gory part, I would say it's an excellent description of the Old Dark House. You say like Grand Guignolesque.
Yeah.
The Old Dark House doesn't have any gore in it, but it's certainly the characters are very grand guignol in that movie. And
Yeah.
I like that outspoken theatrical style, especially, of course, when coming from the theater.
Hmm.
So I think I wanted, in asking what genre or what influences that Hotel Poseidon has, it definitely as theater uh, as a big influence, and not a naturalistic acting, but
Hmm.
really a bit. Yeah, it's always a question of how loud is the grotesque button.
Yeah.
You know, this scene it's on 3. Well, this we go for the full on 11,
Put it
and
up on there.
and so on. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Well,
yeah,
in a lot of scenes too, I feel like the character Dave, I feel
yeah.
like in a lot of ways, it's him stumbling through his life. It's like nightmare that he's either created for himself or it's been created for him in a lot of ways. And the way he acts and everybody who's acting off of him, like I think of the funeral director, Amy. That scene to me is like the most hilarious because it almost seems like a ventriloquist scene in a lot of ways. And he's just sitting there on
Sure,
the other side talking about his aunt's funeral and everything. And then you meet Jackie, who's the guy putting this crazy party together, but is also asking Dave, like, "Do you want me to do something about your aunt?" You're not sure what he's gonna do, but I feel like there's almost like in a certain way, Dave is having like a joke put on him a little bit in some ways, where everybody's in on the joke except him, and kind of blurring that line between what's reality and what's like actually happening too is that's what was throwing me for a loop most of the film, but I liked it and it took me all the way through the end. So it was just, I don't know, just the care. What was your thought process? Because like with the characters are very theatrical. Were you just kind of like, I want to make a very specific character that's like Dave's dad is this way, Dave's mom is this way, Jackie's this way, Amy's this way. Like, were those based on people you know also maybe? Because they seem
yeah.
like they're very personal too.
Well, I think that's spot on, actually. Um, Although it's distinctly a movie, it's very reminiscent of our plays in a way, and some themes they always come back. One of them is it's in a way it's very autobiographical. But that's a difficult word for me. Autobiographical.
Autobiographical.
Thank you.
You're
Uh,
welcome.
why? Thank you, Matthew.
Of course.
Such a gent. Uh, so, so yeah, that of course, it's taken out of the context of reality. It's
Mhm.
turned up a bit, but actually, there's a few scenes I really love. The funeral director scene is definitely one of them. Tina, the actress playing Amy, it's actually a character we had in a play, and I just loved that character so much. I wanted her in the movie. And Tina, she's dear and she's a fabulous actress. We've been working on at least 100 plays for the last 20 years.
Oh wow.
And yeah, yeah, she's a co-founder of the company I work for. And and actually, my father died 3 years ago,
Hmm.
and it was the first time was at this confrontation with funeral directors,
Okay.
and more or less, this is what happens. More or less,
Yeah.
they find out if you're insured, they find out how much, they try to sell you
Yeah.
stuff. It's and they try to do this with us, and I'm sure
This half-hearted compassion or something like that kind of going
half
on
quarter, I
almost.
would say quarter,
Yeah.
quarter. I wouldn't say half quarter. So it's a bit that, and I was quite shocked with it, and I tried to deal with these things in my work, and I had a friend like Jackie. Once it didn't go that far, but I had well, we all did. So it's
Yeah,
quite
we probably still
autobiographical
do.
in a way. Sorry, was
We
that
probably
Matthew?
still do have friends like Jackie most of
No,
the time.
not anymore.
Not anymore though,
Except for that actor.
except for him.
That actually is no. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he just the characters in like and when I'm watching the film, it kind of reminds me of like you have that kind of like Jean-Pierre Jeunet type look to it. It kind of has
Mhm.
that delicatessen, City of Lost Children type look to it, where it feels very lived in, but it also feels grimy and dirty and like were did were you specifically looking like how disgusting can we make things? Because I think outside of the things that are kind of like not sure what's really going on, especially the party scene where that and that take I mean I guess we'll go back and forward a little bit.
Sure.
Was that party scene kind of it seemed like it was one take. Like the way you were
Oh,
filming that
interesting.
and the way you did it, it 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 kind of tricked the eye a little bit because you're going from place to place to place. I'm sure there's definitely some trickery going on, but it just reminded me of like a one solid fluid weird take. And from your surprise, I assume it probably wasn't, but it definitely looked like it was.
Well.
The
Actually,
movie
wrong
magic.
there, Matthew.
Yeah.
We well, this is the thing. I've loved films, movies. I think all my life. I often tell people there was a period when I was for 4 years more or less unemployed, and
Mhm.
I saw 3 to 5 movies a day, which was a great period. But of course, watching movies is different than making them.
Yeah.
So you have all these ideas, especially when you're on a shoestring budget. And for example, for that scene, I wanted a one take, and we actually did it. We have 3.5. Uh, we did 3 times in one take, and then we
Yeah.
half a take, and then we just had to stop. The day was over. I was so tired,
You
and
were
it was,
tired.
yeah, I was so tired. As you can tell, because we have a bit of video here, as you
Hmm.
can tell from my no athletic frame. Uh,
Oh, I mean, let's not
well,
go
Matthew,
showing off or anything
it's
like
like
that right
looking in a
now.
mirror.
Stuff.
It's my spitting image right there. But I'm not physically. I'm not equipped to work 14 hours a day, so I was that tired. And you have a take in which some things are good, and you have another take in which other things are good. And it took some persuasion of movie director friends of mine, Jonas Kovaerts, who did the movie Cub.
Hmm.
He said to me, "Just cut it up." The woman Kim, who did the montage, the editing,
Hmm.
she's truly fabulous. And she said, "Just cut it up a bit. It will speed up a bit. It will be fine." So it's like one of those kill your darlings, but it actually was one shot, and she did the editing so well that you have still this feeling
Hmm.
of a one taker, which is quite nice. The other thing I'm quite surprised with, honestly, there's so many reviews came out and user comments about the movie,
Hmm.
and most of them write also. Some are really very well written and pleasantly written,
Hmm.
and they're a joy to read.
Yeah.
But the griminess and the dirtiness and the aesthetics of the filth, it's like a red thread. Well, I wouldn't say thread. It's like a quagmire running through all these reviews. And I
Hmm.
was honestly a bit surprised by it because I love this aesthetic of this worn down and lived
Hmm.
in things. We've been indulging ourselves in it in theater for like the last 10, 12 years. This has become our aesthetic. And we love this look that it feels not like stagey but real. And I was surprised that so many people find it so filthy and so, but enjoyable as well,
Hmm.
but
Yeah.
really filthy because I think I saw so many movies that I loved, which are a lot filthier. I think not many people can surpass the early John Water movies,
Oh, I mean, yeah. Well,
which
that's because that's filth, and that's John Waters using his voice to piss people off, which I really enjoy, and that's what I admire about John Waters. I mean, you go back to Pink Flamingos or
sure.
anything else, it's just kind of like the grimiest, like the underbelly of society all coming up. People like Divine and everything else.
Oh,
And I mean,
beautiful.
and no, and those films are going to live forever in some kind of like underground cinema, which is great. I think that's where John came out of. I'm not going to speak for John, but hopefully he doesn't mind I call him John in this interview though too. So, but but yeah, but then he kind of did other things, and then he goes to Serial Mom, and he does more transgressive kind of things that are just like kind of things that are going to punch you in the gut a little bit. It's not just kind of gross for the sake of being gross sometimes. Then it's like, well, I'm going to make Serial Mom or something like that down the line, or even um, what's the word? I can't think of the film right now with Stephen
What's it about?
Dorff,
What's it about? What's it about?
Melanie Griffin, and
Oh
Stephen
yeah,
Dorff.
yeah, Cecil B. Demented.
Cecil B. Demented. I couldn't think of it for some reason, but he's has a way to create these characters, and I feel like you must be like kindred spirits with John Waters or something, creating these crazy characters that are living on the fringes of society and everything too.
But definitely, as you can tell from my excited comment about Cecil B. Demented,
I know. I
I'm a
was like,
huge
what? Oh, it's like,
yes, I'm a huge John Waters fan, and when I saw, I think the first movie I saw they did was Without Divine was Desperate Living,
hmm
with Edith Massey, and oh my God, it's so bizarre and it's so crazy and fun. It's fun. The dialogues are fun. The way they act, it's fun. But it's very it's on this weird border of real, but it's played, it's
hmm
theatrical, but it's movie, it's done to shock, but still it's well done in a way. It's a very weird mix of what the f am I looking at, and it's I think it hasn't been a direct. It didn't inspire me directly
hmm
to do this movie, but certainly when I saw his movies 20 years ago, it certainly inspired me to do theater back then in a certain way, or to be brave, or to be not to be scared, not per se filthy, but not to be scared to be grotesque,
yeah,
or to go for yeah.
yeah.
So I wouldn't say there's a parallel between Poseidon and John Waters, but it certainly has its origins somewhere 20 years ago in the same kind of I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing too with like American film goers and European or international film goers or directors for that matter is that in a lot of ways we play it very safe here in America outside of people like John Waters or even maybe earlier work by I don't know David Fincher or David Lynch or anybody else. Like they've kind of always marched to their own drummer. But European directors, I think, have always been like, well, we're going to make whatever we want because society is going to allow us to make these things outside of course, in the 60s and 70s, you had, your video nasties and stuff like that, but that was more like censoring movies because they were, over the line and everything like that. It was more of a UK problem. But I feel like in France, Belgium, anywhere in that region, you guys are pushing the envelopes to want to make films that not only were you inspired by, but that you also enjoy watching. And I think you also enjoy kind of poking the bear too, which I really appreciate that. I don't think enough people do that anymore. They're scared to go beyond the edge of good taste sometimes, if you will.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, where do I go from there?
I know it's like that was almost like me throwing it back to you. I was like, oh, maybe
No,
maybe Steph will have something to say about this. But
no, I never. Let me be clear. I've never poked a bear, and I would never push an envelope. That would be. Why would I do
absolutely not.
that?
Why would anybody do that?
Four
Why would any
envelopes.
good artist do that to
That
push an
yeah,
envelope a
sure.
little bit?
Uh, the the thing. Well, I've been always fascinated in. I mean, I like the narrative a lot. I like the blockbuster movies. I'm very broad minded in movies. I,
Mhm.
I I watch every Marvel movie that comes out. I'm just a big geek that
Yeah.
way, and I thoroughly enjoy them. But the things that move me most are the movies that don't have a narrative that goes from A to Z.
hmm
Actually, I don't even like, well, not like is not the word. I'm especially fascinated by stories that go from B to P, back to C, and go to Y without having an A or a Z. And I don't need 26 letters. Just give me 10 letters. And I
Yeah.
find it. I used to give as an example that I love watching Korean movies without subtitles,
hmm
because it can be even more abstract or symbolic, and you and the thing is, I think audiences are underestimated that way. I mean, obviously, Hotel Poseidon, I knew this when I made this. This is not a movie to everybody's taste, of
hmm
course, but you know, when it's well made, and when it makes you feel some, this is important. What
Yeah,
does it
of
make you
course.
feel?
hmm
And I've always found this more interesting than plot. I don't even like the idea of characters very much. I
Okay.
think there should be characters, but I don't. Working with actors, I hardly ever go into the psychology of a character.
Hmm.
I think the actor sometimes needs to do this, and
Yeah.
if they can't work it, I will help them. But I don't like to touch psychology too much. I like these, sometimes we call them just persona or even ghosts or
Hmm.
shells. And there are people who think, I think that Dave is like an absolute empty shell. I beg to differ. I
Yeah.
think he appears to be an empty shell, but but there's a depth into Dave, but it's blocked. It's very blocked. But it has a depth to him. He has
Yeah.
emotions, but he's having a hard time with them.
Yeah. Which is interesting because that kind of dovetails into the next thing I want to ask you. One of the big things that kind of got me interested in the movie right away was basically him laying in a bed of his own filth, just looking like a shell, looking like a broken toy, if you will, something to that extent.
Sure.
And then his neighbor next door, I guess he hears his neighbor all the time watching pornography, and it's a very interesting and entertaining way to kind of introduce the world that we're about to go into a little bit. And he asks him to turn it down or turn it off, and he says, "Hey man, you should try something new today. You should try something different today." And this looks like a guy who hasn't tried anything new or different in the better part of like the past 10 years or something like that. So ever since he took over this hotel. So I feel like that's an interesting thing where you're putting the plot is basically Dave tries something new. And then at the end of the movie, after everything he kind of goes through, after he, has somebody, has a person come and stay in the hotel for the first time in a long time, things like that. And it's like, would Dave ever want to try anything new ever again? And does that say anything kind of about you maybe as a filmmaker with, like trying new stuff? Like, is it scary to try new things? Is it scary to push the envelope? Is it scary to put yourself out there type thing?
I think it's about the best the, the best things I ever did is when I take a leap.
Mhm.
It's the best work. Sometimes I make plays that are a bit safer.
Mhm.
I will admit to this. They're a bit safer, but the best work is always this with a high chance of failure.
Yeah.
It's more interesting. The Sometimes I write plays and we read them with the actors, and I already see the play in front of me, and I think, no, we're not going to do it.
Mhm.
Give me a few days. I will write a new play. It's too safe. I don't like that. So another thing is that you need people that that push you to take this leap, and this is something. Sometimes I'm a full-time director. I have a lot of work, and luckily, and um, you have to be a bit careful that you don't step into this machine of producing,
Yeah.
and you're very very quickly there. If this is really your job, 24 hours a day, and you get used to things, and it becomes a bit too easy, and before you know it becomes a bit boring. So you need people around you that say, no, take the leap, this is more interesting, take the jump, just do it. So these are two. So no, I'm not afraid to do it, but sometimes I have to be reminded to do it. And this movie is a very good reminder also for me. We just at one point took the leap. People have been asking me for 20 years. I made some TV series, but people have been asking, but always with friends, and people have been asking me, you should make a movie. Just make a movie once, which is easier said than done.
Of course.
But yeah, yeah. So, but at that point, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. We have 2 years. Let's find the money. Let's arrange it. Let's plan it, and let's do it. And I have no idea, as not a official movie maker. I don't have all the tools
Yeah.
or knowledge. What do I know about lenses? Nothing. Nothing. I did some photography.
Yeah.
You know.
You're used to
So you
being
have.
you're used to doing a theater play where there is no camera. There's basically you telling the actor, here's
Sure.
motivation, here's plot, act it out, but you're not recording, you're not worried about framing of a scene or anything like that, or like, making sure that this is, I mean, hitting a mark is still the same thing in a theater versus a movie, but there's vast differences in being on a set with making sure everything is filmed correctly. It's like, oh, well, you got to start over or something like that. There's a
Sure.
lot more, I guess, ins and outs of doing that.
Yeah,
But
and it's easier to correct in a play. I think that's for me, and because the plays we do are mostly very filmic, so we have this advantage. Still, it's a different set of tools, but the difference is, if the shooting day is over, it's over. These are your shots. This is what you have to work with, and true, we don't have a camera. You have the audience, and I have my eye, but it's not like I can readjust. Uh, but it's I don't know where we're getting with this, but yeah, interesting.
I was just curious about, like, you summed it up pretty well with just, like, taking risks and
Yeah.
maybe seeing yourself or like I guess, and the last thing I'll kind of ask and kind of wrapping it up is, what are you hoping for people to kind of get out of this film a little bit? Because it does start, it seems like it starts in a very kind of interesting place about, hey, get over yourself, clean yourself up, get out of those nasty, disgusting pants and socks and everything else, and do something different. Stop wallowing in your own misery. That's what it kind of feels. That's what I was kind of getting out of the film a little bit. Like a person who just is completely. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, and this is maybe just kind of off base, but Kevin Smith in Clerks with Dante. He's like, I'm stuck in a rut. How do I get out of this rut? So this is a completely different thing than working at a convenience store, but that's what I was kind of getting out of it. I'm not sure what your kind of philosophy was or what you were kind of going for, or were you just like, I'm making some messed up stuff and you're gonna like it or not type thing.
Well, it's that, and it's that and more and less. The package is, if we could talk, when talking content about this movie, it becomes quite hard. We can talk content about the level of really story-wise or plot-wise. We can talk about the content of the character or the message of the movie. But I think these are all possibilities, and if people Google this movie online, they will find people who actually wrote very good, very clever stuff about this, about being in aquariums, about being watched, about growing up, about death. It's a very Freudian movie for sure. Uh, um, but if I would go to the essence of it, I'm not sure I would go for I wrote some messed up stuff and this is your thing. Not that, but certainly there's always the intent of I want to make something that hasn't been made yet.
Yeah.
It can have echoes of stuff that remind you of other things. Not very clear. It might remind you, like you said about, I think you said messed up version or trashy version of the Shining.
Yeah.
I have no problem with it being very, very reminiscent somewhere as an echo of. I'm fine with that. Yeah. But in essence, it's I want to make something new. I want to make something special. I want to make something. In this case, that it's 12 o'clock at night. You're watching some movie on TV, and suddenly, whoop, you fall into this movie, and you think, "What is this?" And I hope that it's hypnotic enough to take you through this dream of a or nightmare of a movie. It has we call it the dramaturgy of the dream. It's very associative and everything is there's characters in it, there's plot in it. If you want it, it's in there. If you don't want to see it, you will not see it. But I hope you get the dream, unicity of the dream. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's got that kind of I mean, because the whole thing is, it just looks like it's like the whole movie looks otherworldly. So it definitely has that kind of dream-like or nightmare type quality to it. And there just seems to be, just like in a dream, things are happening and you're not sure why, but they're kind of an amalgamation of your day or your week or your month or your year. And I almost feel like with things that we've been going through with COVID and the pandemic, it's almost like a fever dream that we've probably already been having. So it's good to kind of have this kind of like these crazy images pop up, but they're not as sad or as horrible as like the stuff we've been going through for the past like year and a half. So it's almost an escape in a certain. I mean, that's what film should be anyway. It should be just a huge escape. And this film was it reminded me of so many different things, from the Art Deco look of everything to just the dreamlike atmosphere, and just the things happening for reasons you're not quite understanding. And to your point, you can kind of piece together how you want to piece it together. It's one of those films where people who don't like to be, I guess, spoon-fed something, were like, I don't
Sure.
get it. It's like, I mean, you get out of the film what you want to get out of the film. It could be a deep, super metaphorical meaning to you, or it could be like, this guy's having a horrible day. It could be either one like that.
Sure is.
Well, thanks, Steph, for sitting down and chatting about this movie. It was, I hope a lot more eyes get on this film, because it's definitely an experience, and it's unlike a lot of the other films that were programmed for Fantasia too. So thank you for creating something that's just out there. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the kind words, Matthew, and for the podcast.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for listening to another interview here on Simplistic Reviews. I will have a link posted below. Anything you want to say, any parting words, Steph, for our listening public, I guess?
I did not prepare anything. I will have fun.
There you go. That's it. Have fun, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
There you go.
Wow.
Thanks again, and I'll see everybody later for another podcast.